but I think this kid is walking.
No, that's okay. I didn't want to sleep anyways tonight. As a kid, my most favorite shows were on network-ran programming blocks. Weekday afternoons and Saturday mornings would be filled with cartoons that wouldn't air on these networks any other time of week because that was adult time. But this time belonged to us. From Kids WB running Batman Beyond to the Fox Box running Sonic running on Sonic X. These were the shows I was willing to actually wake up for. But before the Fox became a box, it was a child. Fox Kids. Fox Kids was dope as heck back in the day. From Spider-Man, X-Man, Digiman. If I wanted to see something good, this was the place to be. But trying to remember everything that was on Fox Kids is kind of hard. There's this blurry image overlaid on my memory of everything else that was on the network at a time. It was a show that I knew I must have watched, but I can't really make it out in my memory. Then I turned down the Gation blur and premiere, and oh my god, it's Angela Anaconda. That's right, Angela Anaconda, a show which in recent years has only been referenced for its odd placement in the Digimon movie, which opens up with a 7-minute short that's part of the official runtime.
This is it, DigiPals. In a few seconds, the doors will open for the best movie of all time. The Digimon movie.
Angela Anaconda is a slice-of-life show starring Angela Anaconda, an 8-year-old girl with a described tomboyish, fun-loving personality. Alongside her friends, Angela attends Tapwater Springs Elementary, where she often faces grounded conflicts with her teachers, parents, and classmate Nanette Manoir, who serves as Angela's bitter enemy and polar opposite, being more concerned with her appearance and fake French facade rather than what actually makes her happy. This style is oh so noticeably weird. It's the only time on my channel the words "was weird" was meant to be taken so literally. The show is so particular with its creative choices, with its written novel-like dialogue, David Lynch student film art aesthetic, and a main character whose voice is loathed by many.
Johnny, we got special business to do, remember? Operation Beached Whale?
It has been remembered as one of the most hated shows of its day. I mean, look at this DeviantArt graphic. But something happened while I was watching this apparently bad cartoon. I also desperately wanted to be bad because bad things make easier content. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I just wanted to make an easy video, but instead I am going to have to take a hot second to articulate my hot take on why I think Angela Anaconda deserves to be remembered as a cult classic. Yeah, another 2020 curveball. This is the hill I've chosen to die on. Just hear me out, because I went into this show wanting to hate it. I wanted to hate this, but I was so caught off guard by my liking of the show that I scrapped an entire video, which was almost completely edited and ready to post because I was that conflicted about my feelings for this show. No sponsor. Follow me on Twitter. While the show was initially produced by Canada's Teletoon, it was adopted by a few American networks as well. It aired on Fox Kids, ABC Family, but the character actually got her start in an animated short on Nickelodeon's Kablam. You know, the show with the naked man. 2 shorts were produced for Kablam, and even this early on, many of the pieces which would later form the full series were there. The strange art style, the voices, the characters, and even what would become the show's most memorable recurring segment, Angela's violent revenge fantasies, which occur during the height of her frustration towards the episode's conflict. She describes how things would go perfectly her way, usually resulting in her arch nemesis, Nanette Manoir, suffering from a bunch of violent and embarrassing occurrences.
Help! Help! She will tell me. I can't swim! Even if I did get an A in swimming because of sucking up to the teacher, Queen Anaconda, better swimmer than I.
The concept of the show was created by advertising partners Sue Rose and Joanna Ferrone, who also created advertising icon Fido Dido. Sue Rose is also known for being the creator of Disney's Pepper Ann and Nickelodeon's Unfabulous, which has a very familiar art style in its intro. Inspired by a cut-and-paste collage-style art used in a liquor advertising campaign, the two started playing with the style. But while Rose created the art style for the show and even voiced Angela Anaconda, a lot of the thematic elements come from Ferrone, who considers Angela to be a semi-autobiographical character. The short evolved into a pitch and was eventually picked up and turned into a full scripted 22-minute show with 2 11-minute segments per episode. Yes, this show has a creepy art style. It's unsettling, but it also creates a really unique feeling. It has that same arts and crafts style you can appreciate in early South Park or even Jib Jab shorts. The show relies on a lot of silliness and absurdness for its humor, and nothing highlights that more than its style. Like, so many shots in the show have the same energy as this image, and I like this image. The art assets are just all over the place. The faces are black and white. Some hair is hand-drawn, colorized photography, or just a picture of some hair. And so many visual assets from the early 2000s are so low res, but shit. I used to make animations in PowerPoint, and this has the same energy to it. I love it. But that's just because it happens to appeal to my particular taste. The full series took a lot of the elements of the shorts and adapted it, with a cleaner art style and an expanded cast of characters. While the rivalry between Angela and Nanette is the primary focus of the show, the supporting cast is equally featured. First, there's Angela's best friend, Gina Lash, the smartest kid in school who has an addiction to sweets.
So I guess my sugar daddy thinks he's too big to be my steak daddy.
Johnny Abadi, a Dumbo baby.
One toilet burial coming up. Give me your baseball mitt, Johnny Abadi.
Hey, why didn't you use your own mitt?
Because mine's right-handed, and this is a bird.
Oh.
Gordy Reinhardt, a little fucking dweeb who's a little fucking sweetheart.
Tra-la, tra-la. Hiya, Angela. Isn't it great to be alive?
Water. Must have water.
I'm not surprised. You've been frolicking in the sun for hours.
Angela's family is great too, from her dad, a wacky inventor with the most average, boring voice and dad dialogue. Angela's mom, who's a very talented artist, just trying to keep it together. Angela's brothers, Grandma Lou from Florida, who has a pet alligator named Barney. Yeah, that's about right. No, I will not mention Baby Lulu. Baby Lulu takes one step too far into creepy territory for me. But on Team Nanette Manoir, we got her posse and copycat friends. But also Mrs. Brinks, the teacher, who 99% of the time will side with Nanette on a conflict because she totally sucks up to Nanette, who may be a teacher's pet, but Mrs. Brinks is the one putting effort into their relationship. Angela and Nanette take petty TV rivalries to a completely different level.
My name is Angela. Hey, hello. Welcome to my Marion show.
In the intro, Angela introduces the show as her own, and when Nanette tries to steal the spotlight, Angela just crushes her and reminds the audience what this show really is.
And now to today's story, starring me and not starring Nanette Manoir.
This is not a one-off intro. This is how every episode starts. That's hilariously petty. I think part of the reason their rivalry works for such a long period of time is because Nanette is unrelentingly horrible.
Does anyone have any suggestions for our upcoming class project on the Arctic? What about you, dear?
Huh? I only have the same idea I had last week, Mrs. Brinks. Styrofoam igloos. But you like Nanette's idea about having a furrier come in and show how they skin a sable to make coats.
Yes.
But Angela is not unrelentingly good. She can make mistakes too. A lot of the time, she's the cause of the episode's conflict, usually because she's a bit of a control freak. Having a mistake made by a main character helps create a lesson around their behavior that isn't very heavy-handed. I mean, when a character I really like in a show makes a mistake, it hurts. One of my favorite episodes involves a very Catholic girl.
I heard that, Angela. And you must confess, it wasn't very nice.
That was the point, Josephine Praline.
Josephine Praline?
But if you harbor such feelings in your heart, you'll never be touched by an angel. And if you're never touched by an angel, your life will be nothing but trouble.
Josephine Praline blames Angela's string of bad luck on her hatred of Nanette.
You're not jinxed, Angela Anaconda. You just need an angel.
Josephine? Is that you?
Yes, my child. I am with you. And your guardian angel would be too if you could learn to love your enemies.
She's just so ridiculous. But having gone to Catholic school, it's a ridiculous I am all too familiar with. Angela tries to think of something nice to say about Nanette, but Nanette is, and always is, the worst human being imaginable.
Hey, Nanette!
Angela Anaconda almost put out one of my sparkling eyes.
I was just hoping to save your perfect curls.
And they do so need saving. Of course, I'd do the same for you. I had an umbrella, and you had perfect curls.
And her voice actress does a phenomenal job of portraying her awfulness.
Pardonnez-moi, Angela Anaconda, but I'm afraid that snowball you so recklessly threw at Johnny Abadi ricocheted off his puny little chest and landed on my very expensive silk dress. You'll pay for this, Angela, and I don't mean just the cost of my cleaning bills. One of your many flaws, John, is that you are way too forgiving of what is clearly an unwarranted, brutal attack.
Every stressed sigh out of Nanette's mouth is perfect. Between Nanette's wealth and Mrs. Brink's favoritism, there's a real unfairness to a lot of the conflicts in the show. Everything is rigged in Nanette's favor.
And the winners are...
Mrs. Brinks! Mrs. Brinks! I hadn't decided on my outfit. I had to run with the sun in my eyes. Gina Lash took up 2 lanes. My beauty queen mother never encouraged me to take an interest in athletics.
Oh, you poor dear. You are so right. Do over!
It's the imbalance that makes Angela frustrated, which leads to the show's most iconic quirk, her elaborate revenge fantasies. While I do find the revenge fantasies to be a charming and essential character trait for Angela, I don't necessarily always like to see them play out. While some of the slapstick is great, particularly listening to Nanette Manoir yell in pain, these segments often outstay their welcome. It reminds me a lot of an Itchy and Scratchy short, and while that was never really my favorite part of The Simpsons, I do enjoy them. But there's only a few Itchy and Scratchy episodes in an entire season of The Simpsons. Every single episode of Angela Anaconda has an elaborate revenge fantasy. I get a lot out of this moment, when Angela just considers throwing a rock at Nanette's head. And quick fantasies like this one are hilarious.
Although, I suppose there are a few movies I wouldn't mind seeing Nitty Wart in.
I wonder if the show would be better paced with the fantasy segments cut up into one-off gags like this, but then they would lose the earned moments in each episode where Angela's frustration comes to a boiling point, which is an essential piece for when they do work. I really appreciate this show's dialogue, specifically Angela's. Angela tends to speak a lot in redundancies, which is a quirk I also tend to quirkily do in order to make my videos a little more quirky.
I'm sure my dad would love to be the first neighbor watching our new neighborhood watch.
She's always calling her friends by first name, last name. She never speaks in contractions. The characters themselves speak and talk like they are way beyond their years.
You've got so much to learn about labor relations.
Huh?
Your situation isn't just about age discrimination, Angela. It's about the exploitation of the underclass. It's about fighting for what's right.
Wow.
And Angela never says because. It is always on account of. It creates this odd rhythmic vibe. It's very Peanuts in nature. It's more concerned with articulating the feelings that kids feel rather than emulating a kid's speech pattern. And more so than any other show, these look like real kids, mostly because their art assets are made up of chopped up children. But in the least creepy way possible, which is still pretty creepy. I'm a big fan of it.
Angela, what are you doing in the boys' room?
Never mind that, Johnny Abadi. The question is, how am I going to get out? On account of if anybody sees me, I will never be able to show my face for the rest of my life.
I don't always love Sue Rose as the voice of Angela Anaconda, but it's definitely the kind of annoying voice you get used to. I mean, God, if I were to show you an out-of-context clip from SpongeBob and it wasn't the show's best moment, and you've never heard of SpongeBob because you come from more of a Disney-only family, Christ first, Mickey second, you might think SpongeBob's annoying. And for a lot of people who've seen Angela Anaconda, their first exposure to it was an out-of-context clip from the show's admittedly not best moment.
Angela Anaconda Digivolve to Angelamon.
All right, another great Nanette vs. Angela episode involves Hot Bob.
I love Bob and hot chocolate.
Oh, you do you? Who's Bob? Unless I'm mistaken, which I most seriously doubt, I believe the sentence should read, Bob and I love hot chocolate, or perhaps you're keeping something from us, Angela Anaconda.
The class makes fun of her before finally being convinced Hot Bob is real.
Me and Angela love hot chocolate.
Oh.
Signed? Signed nobody.
Oh.
You didn't sign the card?
That Bob is so romantic.
Nanette, out of jealousy, tries to convince the class Bob and Angela broke up and now they're dating. It's just pure ridiculous fun.
Much better.
Spare no expense flowers where money can buy you happiness. What can I do you for?
I love Nanette and hot chocolate. See, I knew Angela wasn't his type. Bob likes me.
It's a character-driven show, and the show definitely has a fun cast of characters. I already talked about Josephine Praline, the show's absolute best.
Do you have any pencil top erasers shaped like real animals?
How about dinosaurs? They were real.
I was hoping for something more... Frogs!
What a beautiful reminder of the second plague against the ancient Egyptians.
But there's also Mr. and Mrs. Brinks.
Now be sure you're waiting by the curb at exactly 1:15.
Yes, dear.
Johnny's Uncle Nicky.
Hey, Ma, I told ya. You don't smack me around in public, huh? It makes me look like a weenie.
And local Tapwater Springs icon, Astronaut Bob, a former astronaut turned cereal mascot.
My moon rock!
Utah, 1959.
This show speaks to me creatively at an uncomfortable level.
And Astronaut Bob. That Astronaut Bob really boils my tea kettle.
The main group has such a great chemistry. My favorite of Angela's friends is definitely Gordy. There's a wonderful episode where Gordy, a water boy, creates a beautiful floral arrangement on top of the water cooler. The coach, Gordy's dad, is this ultra jock, a real Rex Kwon Do.
Looks like there's weeds or something in the water.
Gordy!
He's so impressed by the arrangement, he thinks it's finally time for Gordy to learn how to actually play football. Just first, that line of logic,
I never knew you felt so passionately about the game, son, but I'm gonna make it up to you now.
it's so silly. I love it so much. Angela's older brothers, who are the dumbest of dumbest dumb jock characters you've ever seen, attempts to teach him, but Gordy is just uninterested in football. It makes Angela stressed about his dad's reaction when he turns out to be bad at it, so she's trying to teach Gordy while also protecting him from her brothers. But at the end of the episode, despite the fact that Gordy didn't like to play football, Gordy's dad just comes to pick him up. And they're not playing football, they're baking!
Keep your voice down, Angela, or you'll collapse our souffle.
Your souffle?
Shh.
You guys are teaching Gordy to make a souffle?
I wish. Gordy's the souffle master here.
The entire conflict of the episode comes from Angela expecting Gordy's dad to be angry, but it turns out they have this really sweet, wholesome relationship.
Hey, Coach, we were just sort of making a chocolate souffle.
A chocolate souffle? Gordy! How many times do I have to tell you? My favorite is strawberry.
God damn it, Angela Anaconda. However, there's a certain mundaneness to a lot of the show, the kind of mundaneness that can really only exist because it's based off of reality. It lends a feeling of authenticity to the show. Like Angela here has her heart set on spending the night at Johnny Abadi's house because, get this, he has bunk beds. That feeling is just so real. Angela gets excited about wearing a new jacket to school. She gets toys that are no longer in fashion. Angela wants to show everyone her really cool space rock, but nobody believes it's from space. It feels sincere. I think one of the most important themes throughout the entire show is having a sense of self-identity and not being afraid to be who you are. And a lot of that comes from the show's co-creator, Joanna Ferrone, who treated Angela as a sort of autobiographical character.
And then my aunt and uncle from Connecticut arrived, and they gave me this big square box, and I opened it up, and inside was a regulation size basketball. And I swear to God, nobody ever in my life will ever, has ever, could ever give me a present that meant more to me than that basketball. It was the best present I ever got. And I didn't realize how much I needed that affirmation, you know, to just be who I was. You know, I didn't think in terms of queer. There was no, you know, social media. There was no Will and Grace on TV. You know, as I got older, the only role models available to me were, you know, Oscar Wilde and Gertrude Stein. That was it. Honestly, it was it. I grew up in a place where I didn't know anyone who was gay, nothing. And in a way, I'm kind of grateful for it because I feel like I didn't take on the burden of an identity that had anything to do with anybody or anything but me. I was myself. I was able to be myself.
And that sense of self she developed over the years was paramount to the creation of the show. I really recommend going to watch animator and YouTuber Amazon Kane's interview with Farone. It's absolutely worth listening to and even sheds some light on how this happened. Amazon Kane has also recreated the show's intro as a part of a pitch package to get the show rebooted. It's faithful to the feeling of the show, but not afraid to make updates. It's absolutely worth going to check out. Just wow. Angela is herself, through and through, while Nanette values more shallow things like fancy clothes and food, and she's always pretending to be French, wrongly using French phrases all the time.
Angela Anaconda? This must be a faux pas, which is French for, who invited you?
And while it is a pretty funny character gimmick, it's no accident that Angela refers to her as fake so many times. Although many of the characters are based on archetypes, they're not one-dimensional. Yeah, it doesn't feel great to see so many jokes made at the expense of Gina Lash's weight, but that's not a concern Gina has at all. And she's also the smartest student in class. Johnny is a dumbass, but he also gets along with everyone, and Gordy isn't afraid to be himself.
Gordorito, ready to rumble?
I don't know the steps, but sure, why not?
But he's also really confident about who he is and what he likes. He's also accepting of who others are and what they like. Then there's big yikes, heavy stereotyped characters like this. I mean, I can see the dialogue getting annoying, and I can see this art style as unsettling and kind of ugly, but I really like both of these things. And I'm definitely not alone. To say Angela Anaconda was a failure during its release would just be false. The show received very decent critical reviews, saying the humor was hit or miss, which I agree with a lot of the time, but the style was bold, with one critic saying it was too trendy for its own good. Trendy. I can only assume that's a comparison to South Park. It was a popular show for all audiences. In fact, the show was so popular that Fox Kids would frequently do marathons of the show because it was a decent ratings success. And even though it wasn't a production of Fox Kids, they adopted the show as their own, and it was Fox executives who requested Angela Anaconda be included in the Digimon movie. It wasn't Angela Anaconda's creators, it wasn't the Digimon's producers. The Fox producers just liked the show that much. I think a large part of the show's reputation completely comes from its placement in the Digimon movie. This segment was created specifically for the film, but later re-edited and repurposed into a completely new episode, taking episode's premise while removing all mentions of Digimon.
Angela Anaconda, Megamorph to Mega Angela.
You heard that, Summer Wars? Angela Anaconda did it first. I mean, this is how people remember the show, and copy pastas like this contribute to its legacy as being a hated show. Essentially, a kid went to go see a Digimon movie, and he got so upset when he looked up at the screen and saw anything but Digimon that his parents started fighting, and they got a divorce. This show has a body count, but once again, seeing an out-of-context clip is not a fair way to judge it. For me, the style in both its writing and definitely its art appeal to the part of my brain that likes this kind of style in both writing and art. It's a genuinely clever, sometimes very funny show with a cast of characters who are charming and grounded. But I have to admit, it took me a few episodes to get into. But you know what? I think it makes sense that the show is disliked by a lot of people. The show's foundation is built off of big, bold, creative decisions, and it's about not being afraid to be yourself. So it's kind of fitting that the show is so unapologetically itself. Ending joke. Hey, if this is your first video of mine, subscribe and follow me on social media. Also, I really do recommend you go watch Amazon Kane's interview with Joanna Farone, as well as the recreated intro of Angela Anaconda. It's really good. Those links are in the description. Yeah, other than that, have a good day. I'll see you next week. Buddy, buddy. Mwah.